the opulence of Dvaraka, a sampling of the Lord's manifest magnificence. Let me start it. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we are reading Canto 10, Chapter 69, verses 1 through 6. So 6 whole verses in a row. Shri Shuka Uvacha Narakam Nihitam Shrutva Tathodvaham Chayoshitam Krishne Kena Bahvinam Tadidrikshusmanarada Chitram Bataitadekena Vapusha Yugapat Prithag Griheshu Dvyashta Sahasram Striya Eka Udavahat Ityuksuko Dvaravatim Devarshim Drashtumagamat Pushpito Pavanarama Dvijali Kulanaditam Utpullen Devavaram Bhoja Kahlara Kumudot Palai Churiteshu Sarashuchai Kujitam Hamsasarasai Prasada Lakshay Navabhir Jushtam Spartikarajate Mahamarakata Prakhyai Swarnaratna Parichadai Vibhaktarathya Patachatvarapane Shala Sabhabhi Ruchiram Suralayai Samsiktamarganganaviti Dehalim Patat Pataka Dvajavarita-tapam. Translation and purport by servants of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Shukadeva Goswami said, hearing that Lord Krishna had killed Narakasur and had alone married many brides, Narada Muni desired to see the Lord in this situation. He thought, it is quite amazing that in a single body, Lord Krishna simultaneously married 16,000 women, each in a separate palace. Thus the sage of the demigods eagerly went to Dvaraka. The city was filled with the sounds of birds and bees flying about the parks and pleasure gardens, while its lakes, crowded with blooming Indivara, Amboja, Kalara, Kumuda, and Utpala lotuses, resounded with the calls of swans and cranes. Dwarka boasted 900,000 royal palaces, all constructed with crystal and silver, and splendorously decorated with huge emeralds. Inside these palaces, the furnishings were bedecked with gold and jewels. Traffic moved along a well-laid-out system of boulevards, roads, intersections, and marketplaces. And many assembled houses and temples of demigods graced the charming city. The roads, courtyards, commercial streets, and residential patios were all sprinkled with water and shaded from the sun's heat by banners waving from flagpoles. Purport. In the Krishna book, Srila Prabhupada beautifully describes the city of Dvaraka as follows. Being inquisitive as to how Krishna was managing his household affairs with so many wives, Narada desired to see these pastimes and so set out to visit Krishna's different homes. When Narada arrived in Dwarka, he saw that the gardens and parks were full of various flowers of different colors and orchards that were overloaded with a variety of fruits. Beautiful birds were chirping and peacocks were delightfully crowing. There were tanks and ponds full of blue and red lotus flowers, and some of these sites were filled with varieties of lilies. The lakes were full of nice swans and cranes whose voices resounded everywhere. In the city, there were as many as 900,000 great palaces built of first-class marble, with gates and doors made of silver. The posts of the houses and palaces were bedecked with jewels such as touchstones, sapphires, and emeralds, and the floors gave off a beautiful luster. The highways, lanes, streets, crossings, and marketplaces were all beautifully decorated. The whole city was full of residential homes, assembly houses, and temples, all of different architectural beauty. All of this made Dwarka a glowing city. The big avenues, crossings, lanes, and streets, and also the thresholds of every residential house were very clean. On both sides of every path, there were bushes, and at regular intervals, there were large trees that shaded the avenues so that the sunshine would not bother the passers-by. Purport ends here. Om Ajnana-timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam. I was born in the darkest ignorance, and a spiritual master opened my eyes with the torch of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. When we Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada, who established within this material world the mission to fulfill the desire of Lord Chaitanya, give me shelter in his lotus feet. I offer my obeisances to all of you assembled Vaishnavas and seek your kind permission and blessing that we may recite Srimad Bhagavatam in your presence. Thank you once again for joining. This beautiful description of Dwarka, just gorgeous. All the swans and the waterways and the streets and 900,000 palaces. It brought to my mind a number of thoughts and even questions. Are these descriptions of opulence not just another type of pandering to our own material desires? Nice parks, nice swans swimming in the nice lakes, and cranes and making lovely sounds. And most attractive of all, traffic moving smoothly. This passage is definitely directed to those of us who live in this area of the country. I mean, traffic jams clearly are not just a modern phenomenon. They've been having them for thousands of years, apparently. And a smooth moving city grid is a very definition in the Bhagavatam of heavenly divine city life. But this scene, is it not just materialistic? These opulences? Aren't we supposed to be more thinking of simplicity? In the beginning of the Bhagavatam, Narad Muni chastised the author of Bhagavatam, his own disciple, Vyasadeva, for offering so many material enticements to people so that they could, eventually take up spiritual life. Come take part in this whole Vedic, paradigm. come, we'll do these sacrifices. And if you do this mantras, you'll get a bunch of gold. If you do this mantra, you'll get some silk. If you do that yagya, you get your daughter married to a nice family. I mean, this is what he got in trouble for. He thought he'll do this and then he'll kind of give Krishna secretly. But Vyasadeva told him, no, too many bridge programs. That's why you're not feeling so happy. So that backfired. So is he not making the same mistake here with these disciples? Did he forget the chastisement of his guru, Narad Muni? Here his guru is flying around here in the sky, came to see Krishna in Dvaraka. Did he make a mistake? No. Why? Because Krishna is front and center. Krishna is featured as a centerpiece. This description glorifies Krishna. And it glorifies not just Krishna by himself. Part of Krishna's glory is that all his devotees are with him. The 16,108 queens, they're in this whole picture. The astounded Narad Muni is in this picture. The lovely birds and plants, they're devotees here. They're in this picture. When we are children, our imaginations are captured by enchanting stories. Enchanting stories like the talking creatures of Alice in Wonderland, or so many Disney movies. Our inner child yearns for these things. And not just animals and plants. Even things like normally inanimate objects like candlestick and furniture dance and sing. We've seen those pictures, the posters of those Disney movies and so on, right? We are charmed. We're enchanted by these stories. Not because they're fantastically fictional, but actually because they have a basis in ultimate reality. The charming description of Dwarka and Vrindavan and the spiritual world, these are ultimate reality. How do we know? The scriptures confirm these. Our gurus confirm these. The great lineage of Vaishnava sadhus confirm these. And if we examine our hearts, see what is it that pulls our heartstrings, makes us joyous, joyful in these stories, we will find confirmation somewhere in there, hiding behind piles of dusty cynicism that we may have acquired. There's some confirmation. We'll find it. It's there. Now, when we take up Krishna consciousness, we're advised to steer away from the mundane, steer away from selfish, materialistic enjoyment. And that's good, solid advice. That the beginning of detachment from matter, while we cultivate attachment to the Lord, that's how we can get started on our path to spiritual growth. It's important to keep that in mind. I remember sometime back in 1993, we went on a Harinam with the devotees in Philadelphia. And after the event, we were just sitting in the park, having some water to drink and so on. And a devotee remarked how nice a sunset looked. The water shining. Now, one of the new bhaktins, she got in the mood of chastisement and angrily said, this is just material. And if you get attached to things like sunsets and attached to things like material beauty, then we'll be stuck here forever and we'll never become Krishna conscious. So don't talk about stuff like that. Now, obviously, this Mataji, she must have enjoyed sunsets in her life and things like that, but she couldn't admit or bring herself to admit that she liked that or to deal with it maturely. There could have been more healthy ways to respond, like, yes, just see. And just think how much more beautiful Krishna must be who is the source of this beauty. And this view is described in scriptures as like Krishna's dress. I mean, there's so many positive ways you could have processed this scene. So sometimes we may come under this misconception that everything in the material world is meant to be renounced completely. But when we connect it to Krishna, then even this world, which Krishna calls Dukhalayam Ashashvatam, this Dukhalayam world, this place where there's nothing but misery, even this world becomes filled with sukha for a devotee. Our sense of wonder gets reignited. And we can once again step into a charmed life of enchantment, seeing the connection of Krishna everywhere. It's true. We want to live an enchanted life. But when we are stuck with the cynical attitude of trying to enjoy selfishly, then we cut off ourselves from the charm and the enchantment is available everywhere. We are living in Dukhalayam, in the place where there's nothing but dukkha, pain, misery. But how can we once again step back into the sense of wonder, the wonderful world of enchanting connectivity with Krishna? This happens when we receive the merciful sidelong glance of Lord Gaura, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And what is pleasing to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? Put everything aside, at least for a little while, and chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Chant happily. Chant by yourself. Chant outside. Chant in a box, chant with a fox, whatever you want to do, but chant wherever you are. Then what happens? We get the sidelong, most merciful glance of Gaura. And it's a nice verse written by one of the devotees of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It says, Kaivalyam narakayate tridashapur akasha pushpayate Durdantindre kalpa sarpa patali prakhata damshtrayate Vishwam purna sukhayate vidimahendradichakitayate Yat karunya kataksha vaibhavatam tam gaura evastama. When you get the karunya kataksh of Gaura, what happened? Kaivalyam narakayate. This impersonal approach, you see it for the hell of what it is. Yes, impersonal liberation is hell. Narakayate. Tridashapura akasha pushpayate. And the allurements of material enjoyment in this heavenly planets, it's like a flower in the sky, akasha pushpa. It's just phantasmagoria. What happens? Vishwam purna sukhayate. The world gets filled with sukha. See, on one hand, Krishna says dukhalayam, but when you become a Gaura devotee, you get the merciful glance of Gaura. Then this Vishwa itself becomes purna sukhayate. You see, it's the ultimate paradoxical existence. That you know it's the place of misery, and yet you're smiling. Why are you smiling so much? If you know the pain of this world, why you devotees are just smiling, jumping up and down? On the other hand, you're saying Dukhalam Ashashtam. It doesn't make sense because of this mercy. Vishwam Purna Sukhayate. Because we know everything's connected to Krishna. Taking up Krishna consciousness does not leave us bereft of the joys of beauty and aesthetics. These scenes of Dvaraka, etc., they're created by Krishna as a backdrop for his variegated pastimes. And because he's infinite, the varieties of charming beauty are also infinite. And when Krishna comes to this material world, his entire dhamma and his entire drama, his dhamma and the drama, they all come with him. His spiritual kingdom is manifest here. Now, this material world is not outside his kingdom, by the way. It's part of his kingdom too. Just as the prison house is not outside the country. It's part of the country. You know, it's a little different, but it's there. So this Dhamma, when Krishna comes, he brings it with him. This manifestation of the Dhamma that we read, the beauty of it, this manifestation is actually also a person. Remember, in this Krishna conscious paradigm, this model, this philosophy, we recognize the personhood of all these objects that we see. This is a person, that mountain is a person, that tree is a person, that river is a person. In the material paradigm, it's the opposite. We objectify persons. Oh, that person, I can use him for that. That person, I can use her for that. You know, exploiting persons, make them into objects. Whereas in the spiritual paradigm, we respect even objects as persons. It's a whole different world. But when Krishna's Dhamma comes here, that Dhamma, that manifestation is actually Lord Balaram himself. Let's describe that. Lord Balaram himself expands to fulfill all of Krishna's desires. So the very roads and the buildings and furniture, even Krishna's very shoes and garments, those are Balaram himself. And Balaram is the servitor Godhead. He is Krishna's first expansion. There's really no difference between Krishna and Balaram. You can say Balaram is a white Krishna or Krishna is a black Balaram. It's the same thing. When Krishna takes one step to his right, it's Balaram. It's really no difference between Krishna and Balaram, except, you know, just minor things. Balaram is the servitor expansion, the first expansion of Krishna. Yeah. So Krishna and Balaram, they are the ultimate support for everything. As Sheshanag, you know, the 1,000-hooded serpent incarnation, that's Lord Balaram again. He supports the entire universe. The entire universe sits on his head, all of existence, right? And with his unlimited heads and mouths, he is endlessly speaking the glories of Krishna. Hari Ananta, Hari Katha Ananta. So Shesha is known as Ananta, endless. There's no end to him. And as Lord Krishna supports Balaram. It's all about support. Just look at this picture of Krishna Balaram deity. Who is leaning on whom? The stronger one is he who provides the support. It is he who the other one leans on. So you can see Balaram is leaning on Krishna and Krishna is providing the support. But he provides us support as well. Krishna is supporting us at every level, at the cosmic level, all the way down to the level of molecular biology involved in our body. You know, the 15th chapter, Krishna says, Gamavishya cha bhutani, dharayami hamojasa, pushnami chaushadhi sarva, somo bhutva rasatmaka. Right? He said that verse, that all these planets, I'm keeping them afloat. And the earth is moving this way, and the moon is moving that way. And that verse, he describes how then from the moon rays, he infuses the energy of life, the vitality of life, into the fruits and vegetables and the plants that we eat. So you can see at the cosmic level, he makes an arrangement for this whole thing to happen. It's huge scale, we're talking planets, right? And then the very next verse in the Gita, he says, Aham Vaishvanaro Bhutva Praninam Dehamashita Pranapana Samayutam Pachamyannam Chaturudam. That I become the fire of digestion entering into your stomachs. Praninam deham ashrita. It takes shelter of the bodies of these living entities in the form of Vaishwanara, the fire of digestion, and the ingoing breath and outgoing breath. So just think about it. Those two verses next to each other. I think it's 15:13, 15:14. He talks about how cosmically he arranges for support for us. That's just for our food and a place to stay. And then after the food is there and we chew it, well, it needs to be digested. So he himself enters into our stomachs, and the breath also. He's the breath that keeps us. That's a support. You know how we say he's on life support? We are always on life support. That's Krishna supporting us. And that's just a physical aspect. Then the very next verse after that, the 15th one, everyone knows that one. Sarvasya cha aham hridi sannivishto mattah smritir jnanam apohanam cha. I am in everyone's heart. Yeah, of course, digestion is also there, but I'm also in your heart. At the subtle level, I'm there to support your needs for your mind. So, right? Sarvasya chaham hridi sannivishto matta smritir, memory comes from me. Jnanam, knowledge comes from me. Apohanam, forgetfulness. Why? Well, if you want to enjoy this world, you would have to forget certain things. I provide that. Imagine, Krishna is so merciful. He provides us with support to forget him. That's how much support he gives us. See, so he gives us support in our hearts. And he's also there as Chaitya Guru. Chaitya Guru means the Guru in the heart. From within, he comes as Chaitya Guru. And from without, he sends his representative, who comes as the Shiksha, Diksha Guru. So many gurus Krishna provides. This is the ultimate support. He's supporting us with every heartbeat. Support also means encouragement. Krishna gives encouragement and support to Arjuna in this whole conversation, the Gita, from start to finish. So what is the way for us to give support, to give encouragement to someone else who's filled with anxiety and worry? Well, we have to give them solid reasons not to worry. That's encouragement and support. The opening words of the Bhagavad Gita talk about worry. Krishna's opening words says, Ashochan anvashochaspam. Shoch means worry and lamentation. So his opening is Ashochan anvashochaspam. You're worrying for what is not worthy of worry, Arjuna. And then at the end of the Bhagavad Gita, what is concluding verse? Saradhuram paritejya mamekam sharanam vraja aham tam sarvapabhebhyo moksheshami ma shucha. The same word. It's opening shocha. Ma shucha. Don't worry. The whole Gita is about don't worry. Be happy. That's the whole message from the beginning to the end. If we can deliver, we can free ourselves from worry and share this process and deliver others from their worry. That's what Krishna wants us to do. That's what makes him pleased. Krishna says, nobody pleases me more than one who shares this message with the Gita. So how can we be strong in our own Krishna consciousness, in our own life? By leaning on Krishna, accessing him through his holy names, by becoming like, deeper devotees internally. So let us find ways to encourage ourselves, give full encouragement and support to others in their spiritual life. We can create an atmosphere of love, trust, and positivity. This is what giving strength and support is about. This is what pleases Lord Krishna and Lord Balaram. Tomorrow we're celebrating the appearance of Lord Balaram. We can reflect on his glories and bring that along with us throughout our lives. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. And open up to any comments or questions or reflections or rejections, objections, whatever you want.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, Prabhu, we can. Thank you.
Yeah, you're practically bringing us into the spiritual world. One thing Prabhupada said was that the quality of consciousness of the inhabitants, the population, is reflected in, all these different details of the cleanliness and the flower arrangements and the beautiful architecture that it's manifested. If you go into a devotee's home, it's beautiful, it's clean, and Krishna is at the center. You brought up that point very nicely, that this is not just a godless display of opulence, but it's a manifestation of a whole civilization that is harmonious and beautiful and peaceful and joyful in putting Krishna in the center. And the people that are like that manifest that kind of atmosphere. Even the weather. We've been noticing ever since Ram Roy and the devotees have been doing this Harinam Tapasya, this yagya, that the whole atmosphere of the city is manifested, even the weather. It's going out. So we have an effect on what's around us. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Yeah, when Ram Roy Prabhu chants, the rain starts, and then they pick up and go to the subway, but they still chant, even though it brings rain. It's interesting. Interesting observation. Thank you, Adipusha Prabhu. Madana-gopāla Prabhu, a really beautiful point how Krishna is not poor, he's not lonely, he's not depressed. And, he encourages his devotees by multiplying him, by becoming many. That is a very interesting quality that Krishna has. He can be personal. He can attend to our needs personally. That is so wonderful that we can all share Krishna. There's no deficiency in Krishna, right? I mean, a devotee like Jamuna Jaya can take up the whole entire Krishna, but we have some left. And after Jamuna Jaya, that's because Krishna is unlimited. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Keep your eyes on the road.
Hari Bol, Bhima Prabhu.
Haribol Prabhu. I actually have to. I was out of a Zoom. I was out of distance for the Wi-Fi, but I can't. When I finally got a connection and tuned in, I saw it was you, and of course my heart leapt up. And I just want to say the one thing that feeling comes from is that we hear the stories of the Goswamis and the Acharyas from the past, and that we have with us now in our association with devotees like yourself, this exact manifestation of personalities who are here magnanimously telling us how we may reintroduce or re-invite Krishna back in our hearts, and what that looks like and what that feels like. And so that our faith is strengthened by the fact that we have living examples such as Prabhupada and yourself, Radhanath Maharaj, and all the wonderful devotees in the movement, sort of a spectrum of the colors of what love of God looks like, sort of that arched rainbow that we can follow to the goal. So I just thank you for that, and I just wanted to show my gratefulness by expressing my sincere thanks, um, uh, and can't wait to hear the original lecture. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Bhima Prabhu. And I also want to express my thank you to you for always contributing so much depth in these discussions and injecting with wonderful humor as well. It's most appreciated, very uplifting. Thank you. Yes, Manisha Mataji has her hand up, and Jamana Jailit after that.
Hare Krishna. I'll follow in Bhima's big footsteps, and thank you so much for this class. All glories to you. Could you say more, please, about the personification of objects in our world, in the mundane world, versus the spiritual world, and how that plays out practically for us?
Yes, that's a good question. I'm reflecting on this as I was giving the analogy earlier of, like we see in poetry, in books, in fiction, or in novels, or in children's books, or in children's movies and cartoons and whatnot, the personification of objects, and also just very famous stories in general, where you have a hero and you have a storyline, and then at the end is a happy ending and so on, and the bad guys get dealt with properly and so on, right? All these stories, they're very appealing because they have they have the root in the original reality. How, if you look at the opening verse of the 15th chapter in Bhagavad Gita, Urdhva Moolam Adha Shakam, where it's described that everything we see in this material realm is a reflection of the spiritual reality to some level. Not every single thing maps one to one, but it gives you a clue. Just like a mirror that's somewhat distorted, it gives you a clue as to what's the reality is being reflected, you see. So similarly, when we see these stories of animated objects, personified objects, it makes our heart resonate with it. We like it. We like the fact that even these objects, we can interact with them, we can have relationship with them, we exchange of love. We like the fact that we can do something for the object and the object will feel happy. Whereas in the actual material world, that can't happen. The objects are separate, objects never a subject, subject's not an object, right? But in the spiritual realm, because everything is an object, we can interact. We can engage in the 6 exchanges of love because everyone is a devotee, including the rocks. Like you can have a clump of grass as a devotee in the spiritual world. It's described that when Krishna is walking the path, that a flower will want to be crushed by his lotus foot. So the flower will jump and stand in front of his path, and then Krishna will step on it. And then after Krishna has taken a step, and the flower wakes up again, and then it jumps up and then runs ahead. So they catch his fish in his lotus feet again, and he gets crushed again, and it's so happy. This is real. When we see this happening, say in a novel or a story, we find it charming. Why do we find it charming? Because it's real. Ultimately, it's a reflection of reality. So something to learn is that our tendency in the material world, or the material consciousness, is to exploit for our pleasure, selfishly. And when we exploit for our pleasure selfishly, then the world, it's basically exploiting dead things, And in our quest to enjoy selfishly, we even objectify persons, make them into dead things, Like, a woman will say, oh, he just treats me like a piece of meat or flesh. Well, that's how you feel when someone's being treated or exploited for selfish reasons. We even lose our personhood when we're exploited that way. So it's complete opposite. It crushes the spirit. But when we personify objects, and we personify the objects, but when you recognize the objects as persons in the spiritual reality, then everything is all about love, trust, and exchange of gratitude and these loving feelings. So that's these contrast between the two. That's why we find them charming when we come up with them in our imaginations. That's why they appear in our imaginations. So yes, please go ahead.
May I follow on just because I see Jamuna Jaya apologized that she had to run.
To leave, yes.
Yeah. So I'll follow up to ask, so for example, are clumps of grass devotees in the material world?
Yes, it's possible. Totally. If you look at the example of Bharat Maharaj, who became a deer, it's a living entity, not a human, right? So it's possible. Bhaktivinoda Thakur prays that I wish I was born as a worm or something, but in the house of a devotee. So it's possible that Krishna can fulfill certain desires. Uddhava in the Bhagavatam prays that I wish I could become a clump of grass in Vrindavan. So when the gopis and the other Vrajavasis step, I'll feel great ecstasy. So certainly in the material world it's possible. And ultimately all living entities are latent devotees anyway. The clumps of grass that you find in Bhauma Vrindavan in India, those are devotees. To take birth in Vrindavan in any species means you must have done so many heaps and heaps of devotional service activities to take birth in Vrindavan, whether as a clump of grass or a tree or a monkey or a lizard, doesn't matter. So certainly it's possible and also likely, depending on where you are. Yes. Okay.
There's another example of personifying the objects. Bhima Prabhu named his tractor Kubja. He connected his tractor with Krishna Leela. Adipurusha Prabhu named our car Garuda generously. It's fun to include Krishna everywhere.
Yes,
Our Panditji has his hand up.
Yes, Panditji. Pranam.
Thank you for the wonderful class, Prabhu. Yeah, it's you gave the analogy that, it's very encouraging. Like anything beautiful we see, which may be sometimes distracting in our spiritual life. So it's good to remember, how beautiful the source is. So that is really inspiring. But just want to understand. Sometimes beautiful things that are created in this material world. So the creator, like the sculptor, may not be that beautiful. So how do we extend this analogy?
Yes. The sculpture may not be beautiful to us. Like maybe his face is not particularly attractive, but he made a sculpture that's incredibly beautiful, right? So that we see in the material world. It's almost time for the darshan first. We'll continue right after the curtain opens.
Welcome to the Afterglow, everybody. Thank you for sticking around. Madana-gopāla Prabhu, we can continue glorifying Krishna.
Okay. So the question, coming back to the question, sometimes we see in the world a sculpture, it's very beautiful, but the person who created the sculpture may not be particularly good looking. How does that analogy carry? What are we supposed to take from that? Can we see that in the light of how everything's created by Krishna is beautiful? And we can appreciate that beauty and appreciate Krishna's original beauty, from whom this beauty comes. Now, this is, Annabelle is sharing the Hare Krishna, so beautiful. No, that's not, yes, Annabelle's iPad. And she's sharing how she wrote Hare Krishna using, I believe it's Play-Doh. Very, very pretty. Thank you. Lovely. So that's the beauty of the creator, that those letters may not be perfect, but the heart of this devotee who used the Play-Doh to make this beautiful name of Krishna is perfect. And obviously, she's also incredibly beautiful too. So there goes without a doubt, and that goes without saying. And the beautiful feeling that came out in that creation, the sculpture of a three-dimensional Hare Krishna mantra, and then she's sharing with the devotees. It's beauty all around. Now, in some cases, the sculpture may not be beautiful. Not in this case. This case, the sculpture is just gorgeous. But in some cases, the sculptor, according to our vision. However, because the heart was absorbed in that beauty, that is the beauty of the sculpture too. Because the center was beauty. I'll give you an analogy, not analogy, I'll give you a reference. In the Nectar of Instruction, the 6th verse, right? It says, Gangam basam nakalu budbuddha pena pankair. That the devotee who is absorbed in Krishna consciousness may have maybe a complexion that's not good, or or maybe deformed body or something. But one should not consider that as taking away from the beauty of that person, because the real beauty of that person is he's absorbed in Krishna. Just like the bubbles, the pena means the foam, that sometimes the mud, panka means mud, that you may see in the Ganga, doesn't detract from the purifying effects of the Ganga. So because in the material world, all kinds of things may not be perfectly lined up in what we think is perfect, but functionally they're perfect. Functionally, that guru who is giving Krishna should be accepted as a guru. He may not have particularly straight teeth, perhaps, or maybe, his one ear looks different than the other ear. These things are not important. You see, or what we may think is perfect is not there. That's our own perception of perfection. Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamidachyate. All emanations from the perfect are perfect, and they're perfect, complete wholes, completely, including this manifest material world. Wait a minute. How is it that they're perfect? I don't see. I find so many imperfections in my own life, in my world, in what I see in the world, with the way people look, with the way people behave. How can you say this is emanation from Krishna, this world is perfect? It's far from it. In fact, we said no one is perfect, right? Nobody. So how do you reconcile these two statements? Because it's perfect for what it's designed to do. If you think this prison house is not perfect, it sucks. I know they give us cable TV for an hour, but it's still kind of lame. The food is disgusting. It's not perfect. No. It's perfect for what it's designed. It's a correctional facility. It's doing its job. In software, we say it's a feature, not a bug. When you make a software program, this is not working. No. It's designed like that. It's designed to frustrate you. It's a feature, not a bug. So similarly, when we may see some imperfections, or it's a sculpture is not that beautiful, but the sculpture is beautiful, we can see it holistically. A guru may not be perfect in so many ways, but the guru is delivering the perfect message like the postman. So holistically, the whole picture is perfect. So there's different ways of looking at this. Thank you, Krishna Dev. This is a great question. Hare Krishna. Bhima Prabhu, Haribol.
So what you're saying is that pain that I'm experiencing in this world is a feature of this material world, and not something wrong with me, except for if I choose to suffer by it. I have to look at it as something that, as we've been saying a lot lately, something that's happening for me, not to me. A corrective device. Is that correct?
You've stated it succinctly and perfectly. Absolutely. Thank you, Prabhu. It's right. The pain is a feature, not a bug. It is meant to, give us the experience. Actually, it says that even pain is one of the vital symptoms of life, vital signs. You know how you have a pulse, you have a temperature, Pain is a vital sign. It shows you're alive. It shows your body responding. It shows now, oh, I should not have touched that fire or whatever. If we didn't have pain, we'll just end up destroying ourselves. Pain it's what keeps us alive, can save our lives. However, you also mentioned a very important point. The pain may not be optional, but the suffering is optional, because suffering takes place in the subtle plane. Suffering means, oh, this sucks. It's awful. And it's how we respond to it internally, how we internalize what happens to us. We may not always be in control of what happens to us, but we can always be in control of how we respond to it. Now, a lot of the times our response may be beyond our control. That's only because we've turned a habit into a reflex. Our habits make up who we are. So if you've developed good habits, our response may be reflexive in the sense that it'll be immediate. We're not processing it intellectually. It just respond to it. But that's because of how we have conditioned ourselves. It's called the conditional reflex. Like the Pavlovian experiment of the dogs. You ring the bell, the dog salivates. But if it wasn't for that conditioning, the dog wouldn't salivate with the bell. But we've conditioned ourselves into thinking, this is bad, this is good, this sucks, this is great, this is painful, this is pleasurable. And so we align happiness and distress to that. I grew up in Africa, and I saw some of in the villages, and people with such simplicity, and yet they're not complaining. The kids are so happy, just playing with a stick and a tire and running along with it. They're just smiling like anything. If I were living in that hut where the kid is living, or because I'm just conditioned to thinking, I'll be complaining about everything. This is awful, this sucks, the mosquitoes are killing me. No, but the kid is smiling at like I can't even smile like that. The suffering is optional. It's all in the mind. The pain may not be. But that's the correctional aspect of our lives in this mature world. Thank you, Bhima Prabhu.
Yeah. Pain is the feature and suffering is the bug in our head. And we forget Krishna.
Yes.
Thank you, Madana-gopāla Prabhu.
Anand Bihari Prabhu.
Okay, let's take one more burning question for a pertinent reflection. Isaiah, what's your takeaway from class? What's your take on pain, Isaiah? You've experienced any pain lately? Maybe a splinter? I see some motion. Yes, I see something. He's saying something.
Yeah, Prabhu, please weigh in on this. Bhima Prabhu raised his hand again. Go ahead, Bhima Prabhu.
I just want to say that one of the things that keeps me hanging on is when I was very young, like Isaiah, I lived in Maine in the countryside, actually surrounded by farms, cow farms, dairy farms, and back when it was a simpler trade and not factory-oriented fields. Many fields with cows in them, and we used to spend all day playing in those fields, flying kites, sledding down the hills. It was rolling hills, running through the forests. And so when I came into Krishna consciousness and I found out that God was a cowherd boy and he spent his whole day in the fields and in the woods, I said deep down in my heart, I'm in. And I didn't know what I was getting into, that I would have to give up this world that I thought was real to get into his real world. But that is that one great enthusiastic hope that as you said, everything in this world is simply a reflection. And I remember growing up and moving away from Maine, and constantly as coming into, as we come into adulthood and lose that innocence, we yearn. But as an author once said, you can never go home. You can never return home again. Meaning because time has passed and your consciousness is not the same. There's not that same child's consciousness playing in the fields. And so we can all be super thankful that Krishna simply wants us to return to play. to return to play in the fields, return to running through the woods to find him in a game of hide and seek. That this is actually promised to us, and that it's not some kind of story mythology, as Prabhupada called it, mythology. It's not a story that is somehow alluding to some kind of I don't know, spiritual perfection, but that it is actually a place that we can always hope and yearn to return to, and that we have that joy, and that even now in our spiritual lives, that all the demons that approached Krishna during those wonderful days in the fields, in the pastures, and that how Krishna destroyed them, and how cowherd boys always and girls always took shelter of Krishna, and no matter what, whether it came from above or whether it came from a forest fire or from rain or storm, always taking shelter in Krishna. And so that, you know, we are given these wonderful stories of you, as you said, Prabhu. We've given these stories to show us that we should always take shelter of Krishna, no matter what storms may come, what fires may come, what demons might come from even within ourselves to threaten our peace and our joy of being with Krishna. So that's what your talk has sort of instilled and brought out within me. Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
So lovely. I love the way you framed that, Bhima Prabhu. These stories. And also, like we were reflecting earlier on about how these other stories, like Disney stories and whatnot, when they get created, they do reflect these yearnings, where we want to go and play all the time. But when we read them, somehow we're not convinced. We think it'll never happen. We even call it Neverland, where the boys play all the time, nobody grows up, and the story, like the Peter Pan's Neverland. So these things give us clues why we're attracted to Peter Pan's Neverland story. And the boys are always having adventures, and there's a hero, and there's like little fairies flying around. This enchanted life is what we're seeking. A lot of the times we equate enchanted life to foolishness, immaturity, being out of touch with reality. Then why are we yearning for it? Actually, we're yearning for it because that's reality, But it doesn't mean we lose touch with, doesn't mean we get cheated in this world. Prabhupada was living an enchanted life, was absorbed in Krishna's Leela, but nobody could cheat him in this world. In fact, when he saw his disciples about to be cheated, he's like, watch out for this guy, oh God, he got cheated again. It's very, very sharp. So being enchanted is not synonymous with being naive. You may think it is, but it's not. You can't be fully in touch with Krishna's enchanting pastimes and be absorbed in them while still be sharp enough to not get taken for a ride in this world. Both are there. Okay. Jai. Thank you all very much. Any final comments, or we can wrap it up today? It's a beautiful Sunday. Let us prepare our hearts for tomorrow. We are observing Balaram Purnima, the full moon night of Lord Balaram, his divine appearance, something really worth celebrating. Wherever you are, please celebrate that. Let's extend our gratitude to Lord Balaram. The expansion of Balaram is very easily available. He's sitting right in our hearts. Paramatma is an expansion of Lord Balaram. So we can thank him, and we can thank the devotees, and of course all our gurus. They're the manifest mercy of Lord Balaram, so we can be appreciative of our own gurus. So let's do that tomorrow, and not just tomorrow, but today and every day. Hare Krishna. Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.